All right, thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Sales Game Changers podcast. Today, we're doing another of our office hours Sales Professors Unplugged shows. Again, that series, we bring on university professors and directors of selling excellence programs at universities across the world, Deirdre, that are focusing on educating college students for a career in B2B or B2G or professional selling. So I'm very excited. We have Deirdre Jones from University of Toledo. We'll get to her in a second. I want to remind you, we transcribe every Sales Game Changers podcast we've ever done. You could listen to some of our back episodes with Dr. Turi Lowe or Dr. Dawn Dieter from Kansas State University if you're interested in that. But we have over 750 shows. Go to salesgamechangerspodcast.com, and to read today's complete transcription, just type in Toledo and you'll see it, and you get to read the transcript and listen to the show. Show is also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're listening on Apple, please give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. And Deirdre, all of these shows, our office hours Sales Professors Unplugged shows, are also on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate that. Give a comment. We'll get back to your comments and your thoughts. And I'm excited today. University of Toledo, Deirdre Jones. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. And, I know you've had a long tenure at University of Toledo. So give us some of your background and your journey to leading this program.
Yeah, sure. So thanks so much for having me on, Fred. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, part of Office Hours Unplugged. So my journey actually started and is also still at University of Toledo, although I did leave University of Toledo for a bit before boomeranging back in. So I am a two-time proud graduate of University of Toledo, marketing degree with a professional sales concentration. Back when the program was just a concentration, minored in information systems, did my MBA in information systems, and I spent time in business technology, consulting, sales, and services for a couple of years. Like a lot of University of Toledo students, I was working while going to school to, help pay for things and take care of stuff. And while I was going through the program, had a sales internship, got that sales job after I graduated, enjoyed it a lot. And then I had the opportunity to go ahead and get my master's because my honors thesis advisor was also the leader of the MBA program. He said, hey, he goes, would you like a GA ship to get a free MBA? I think you'd be great in the program. I said, sure, fine. Did that, got my MBA in information systems, got to work with the sales faculty more so as a GA behind the scenes to help with research. I got to tag team teaching our basic sales class because I was already working in business technology consulting, sales and services, because I worked full time and did my MBA full time while also being a part-time grad assistant. That was a crazy year. So really got to, do more stuff behind the scenes, got to teach, loved it, got good reviews, enjoyed working with the students. And then graduated, worked in industry and tech sales. And then an opening came up to be a full-time visiting instructor. And at that point in time, I was married, I had just had a baby, and I was looking for more work-life balance at that particular point in time, and really enjoyed what I did previously. So I had stayed in touch with faculty, came back, worked as an instructor. Also, quick side note, when I was still in corporate, we actually hired University of Toledo students as interns at the company I was working at, because I was an intern once upon a time, and then we hired interns. Faculty member in the program, spent some time. We did zero outreach and engagement. I went to one board meeting and I was looking around and I'm like, oh my God, so much low hanging fruit. We really need to be more involved with the business community. And so we started our corporate partnership program and other events to better engage with the business community so we could make sure that our curricula and our research was as aligned as possible so we could best serve our students and also the business community. And my role just continued to evolve over time from full-time faculty, assistant director, associate director, and then now director of the program, but always in response to what can we do to better serve the community. And just so incredibly blessed that thanks to, Ed Schmidt, who endowed the program, and then our corporate partners, Ed was generous seed money, our corporate partners watered the seed, but our program has really been able to benefit from that external funding so we can better serve everyone. So it's just been neat to have that perspective of being a student in the program, a graduate assistant behind the scenes, in corporate hiring and working with our interns, having sales experience in the field myself, and then coming back to also teach and then now run the program. So I've seen this from every single angle. So I really try to use that to better understand where all of our customers and stakeholders are coming from.
Yeah, that's quite a journey. So let's get a little bit deeper into the program. One thing you told me is that you focus on non-seniors. Tell us why that is and give us a little more insight into why you're doing that.
Yeah, so when it comes to our internal competition, but then also our national competition that we run, the U Toledo Invitational Sales Competition, we focus exclusively on the non-senior as far as competitors go. Seniors can come to the competition and are more than welcome, but in the capacity of a peer coach, because as I'm sure you are acutely aware, part of that skill mastery is then being able to teach and coach someone else
Hmm.
in that space. And the reason we wanted to focus on that, and just quick side note, it wasn't my goal to start that way.
Oh.
When when we started with our internal competition, I was only letting, the older students, the ones that were already in classes, compete. And the younger students came up to me and they were saucy but respectful. And they said, but we want to try, we're ready. And I said, well, you haven't taken your class yet. And they said, well, we love this and we want to try it out. And then the older students said that they would help out. And I said, okay, fine. Next year when I do it, you can do it, but we're going to give you a separate division. We need to be transparent. We need to be fair. I don't want you getting, like slaughtered by a seasoned senior. And did that. I was very nervous that second year. And partway through that first round, we take a break. And our corporate partners were like, I cannot believe that was a sophomore. Where have
Hmm.
you been hiding these kids? And I'm like, yes, 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 right? And just having that moment that, cream is cream. And it was also a moment for us too, because even though higher education, we're in the heat of the enrollment decline right now, this was something that higher education has known about for quite some time, right? That
Hmm.
enrollments were going to be more of a challenge as we look forward. And our enrollment decline is, the hiring pipeline talent challenge for corporate, right? Because it just keeps, going further down the supply chain, so to speak. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were doing everything that we could to recruit more students into our program so we could keep up with corporate demand. But it was also about giving students a space to explore their careers before they get into upper division. So many programs, you don't have major specific classes until you get to upper division. And we wanted to give younger students the opportunity to shine outside the shadow of a senior, that opportunity to do something that they see as fun and relevant because it's what they want to do later on. And so it was about, helping out those students, helping University of Toledo and other universities that come to be a part of our competition, helping them with their own recruiting because we're the conversation starter for those universities with their students to try and get them into sales programs because now it gives them something to talk about with freshmen and sophomores about getting involved with their sales programs. So enrollments are growing, not just at U Toledo, but in other locations as well.
Yeah, a lot of things to unpack there. I might have actually jumped ahead with that particular question. What I meant to ask you first was, it looks like, background, one of your, a big part of your program is the sales
Yeah.
competitions. So for people who don't know what they are, and then you gave a great answer about why, some of the younger students are involved, but tell us what they are and what is the value to the student to be competing in these
Mhm.
competitions. And actually, you raised some interesting things, which we may or may not go to about the pipeline for a lot of these selling professional excellence programs being the pipeline into companies that are looking for people who can hit the ground running, right? Some people that we talk to say, it might take you 10, 12 years to really get your sales career going because you have to understand customer, you have to understand process, you have to understand what you're selling. That one of the reasons why we're doing the office hours Sales Professors Unplugged show is because what we see at these universities is just amazing. How well prepared you're getting these kids. And a big way that they're demonstrating this preparation and readiness is through the competitions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Competitions. I mean, University of Toledo hosts a national. There's other universities that host national competitions. Most of us do internals as well too. And with them, they are sales call interaction role plays, right? So we give them a selling scenario. There's varying levels of complexity, really depends on we're talking internal or national, and then what types of key learnings we want the students to be experiencing, because this isn't about having good energy and being a good people person. There are actual rubrics that
Mhm.
are research and best practices based that we go through, and that's part of why companies actually love coming to the competitions is because it's great refreshers for them and their
Mm.
teams to see how sales interactions really should be, how they really should flow. And these are not scripted situations. These are very organic conversations that, if you train and you coach right, they can be very organic conversations. And so there's just sales situations that the students will have to role play through, everything from your opening, rapport building, information gathering, solution presentation, handling objections, and then a close. And then, of course, some things that encompass everything, right? Like communication skills, product and service
Mm.
knowledge. And yeah, so some of the calls interactions might be more information gathering based or value proposition based. They can be done on a one-on-one or in a team situation. It just varies based on the curricula and also the competition. But it's all about putting theory into practice. And so we do role plays in our classes and obviously at the competitions as well too, because University of Toledo and plenty of other university sales program schools very much about turning that theory into practice because it can sound great in your head, but until you are actually in that scenario and
Mm.
role playing it out, you never know how it's going to go. And University of Toledo and others, we're also doing role plays with AI as well
Mm.
too. AI sellers, AI buyers, because we're
Mm.
exploring both sides of the table. And so it's important for the students to get practice to build their competence and their confidence.
Yeah, I want to talk about your curriculum. It's interesting when you talked about the competition, about the various stages that, the student goes through in the competition, eventually getting to some form of close, which might just be scheduling a meeting, right?
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I've judged a couple competitions and, it finally occurred to me, oh, the whole goal is to get to the next stage. And as we know in sales,
Yep.
the close is the next stage, the follow-up. I
Mhm.
noticed that you have like a purchasing class, for example. I think that's brilliant. Tell us a little more about the curriculum and why classes like that are so important.
Yeah, so for us at University of Toledo, when you look at what is, the top skill sets of top performing salespeople, regardless of industry, the number one skill set of a top performing salesperson is understanding customer perspective.
Mm.
What better way to understand customer perspective than to more fully engage in a purchasing class to understand that? And so what we do with our purchasing class is we also include them in the role plays. So when our basic sales class goes to do their role plays, they are actually role playing. Their buyer is the student in the purchasing class. And they connect twice throughout the course of the semester, one time on an information gathering call. And then what happens is prior to that, the purchasing student is actually working on their RFP, their request for proposal. And so that's what they're looking at, putting that together. The seller student is going to ask the buyer student questions to learn more about their needs because they're going to reconnect later in the semester to do a proposal presentation based on the needs that they uncovered in that information gathering role play and what they saw in the request for proposal. They're going to present that proposal. There's going to be some conversation about it. They're going to try to close. But the fun thing is our purchasing students are role playing with multiple seller students. So they're hearing different types of proposals, different types of ideas, and then ultimately that purchasing student is going to put together a purchase recommendation on who should get the business and why.
Mm.
So some of the other stuff that we cover in that class, well, obviously there's legal things that get covered in
Mm.
class. We talk about negotiations in that class, right? Because if you're looking at multiple options, you're going to have to potentially negotiate, but also internal selling, right? That purchase recommendation that exists because there is some sort of buying center that you need to explore because different people have different needs. They might have different thoughts and opinions, rational and irrational, right? About what should be happening and why. So we also cover internal selling in that class. We talk about project management, right? Because it's about how do we get something approved, but then also steward that and throughout the execution and implementation phase. And also customer journey is a really big part of that conversation as well. So
So that's great. You covered a lot of interesting things there, and yeah, I like the fact that you mentioned legal stuff.
yeah,
Because contracts, obviously, in B2B and B2G are a big part, and there's so many things that you need to know about as you're going from a professional selling into a professional selling career. There's multiple buyers that you have to have in the process. It's not just like, what do I got to do to get you to buy this pen? That
right.
never happens. But
Yeah.
you also need to understand the technical buyer, the financial buyer, the program buyer. Something that you mentioned before, again, we're talking with Deirdre Jones from University of Toledo. This is the Office Hours Sales Professors Unplugged podcast, part of the Sales Game Changers podcast. You talked a lot about bridging the worlds between the business community
Mhm.
and your students. I want to talk about that for a little bit. What is the value that businesses would see from being teamed with the University of Toledo? And what are employers looking for, when they're hiring a college student from your program?
Yeah, well, I think the very first thing they're looking for, which is why they come to University of Toledo and other university sales programs, is they know our students already want to sell,
Mm,
right? I mean, because one of the
mm,
things that we're really big on teaching is there's two things you're actually selling when you're selling. First off, you're not selling, you're teaching someone how to buy, but you're selling somebody on concept of change and then change with me. Right. And you have to make sure you are working on both of those sales, those concepts in parallel. And so, from a company's perspective, when they're going to recruit, because it's absolutely a sales cycle, the whole first concept of you should go into sales, that's done. We took care of that, right? Not that there aren't some students that are still contemplating or trying to like navigate that space, but the number one reason why they come to us is they know our students already want to sell. The number two reason why they come to us is because our students really know how to sell,
mhm,
right? They're looking at our curricula. So some of the stuff that really stands out at University of Toledo, we are the only university in the entire country that has a major, a minor, some sort of other third undergraduate degree designation, and MBA level programming. We're the only ones with that particular kind of depth in our program. The role play integration I was talking about earlier, where
mm,
you have the sales class and the purchasing class where they interact. Another aspect to that is our Salesforce leadership class also provides coaching to our basic sales students on how that first role play went so they can get coaching before they go into that proposal presentation. And our
mm,
corporate partners are also part of that coaching session as well. That 360-degree review, that's unique to University of Toledo, as is the fact that we're the only university that requires our students to take a purchasing class. It makes a difference when you have a major and other things that are required and baked into the program to have those students be ready. But also, like a lot of other sales programs, Sales Education Foundation is a wonderful resource. They track university sales programs, and they found through their research, they looked at UToledo students and students at other programs, they ramp up 50% faster than their non-university trained counterparts. The retention is 30% higher. And when you're looking at the training cost to onboard somebody, they're usually saving about $180,000 when it comes to training and onboarding costs, because our students,
mm.
they go to training once they get hired and they're like, I already know this, right? And so they're jumping ahead to, okay, how do I take our value proposition at wherever I'm working and deconstruct that into figuring out who are the different types of buyer roles that I should be talking to, and how can I tailor my questions to that, and which parts of the value proposition would resonate more, and which objections should I be ready for, and how can I handle that? So
Yeah,
our
the way you described it is perfect because a lot of companies we work at the Institute for Effective Professional Selling with world-class B2B and business to government companies, and the ones that so they join the IEPS, and a lot of them say we're pretty good, we're very good at onboarding our new employees, particularly those who are more on the junior side on our products. We're
Mhm.
good at that, and they also say we're generally pretty good at getting them onboarded on our technology using Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever it might be. And what they all tell us, and that's why they join the IEPS, is they say, we're not very good at teaching them how to be selling professionals, right?
Mhm.
So getting that head start at a University of Toledo, all the stuff that you teach them, the whole process, getting coached, like you just mentioned, from the students who are, a little more senior than them in their education career, uh, gives. I love the fact he said 180,000 bucks, to get them started, the savings that companies will see. And that's why we see so many great companies. I have a question about the sponsors. Are they local mostly, or do you have a global reach? What type of a company would be looking to hire these kids? And actually, you're one of the great things you said, which we see so much is a lot of the kids, if not all of them, who are in these professional selling programs like yours, they want to get a job in professional sales, right? Now, we talk to a lot of people who are engineering majors or computer science who at some point after graduating, they discovered, well, I'm pretty good at explaining this and I like working with customers. But, the kids who are going through the professional selling programs, they know that they want to go into those programs.
Mhm. Yeah, so I mean, the companies that we're working with, we do have some local companies that work with us and to hire students, but we also have large international organizations as well. So I mean, we're working with companies like International Paper,
Mm,
Hilti, Airgas, Schindler Elevator, and others to recruit and work with our students. I mean, in companies like Adobe and Waste
mm,
Management, right? So there are some very large national international companies that work with our program. So and then there's even some larger companies like Owens Corning, right? Large
mm.
international company headquartered in Toledo, right? So you've also got a little bit of that, local, but also very much national at the same time.
That is great. All right. Once again, we talked today with Deirdre Jones, University of Toledo. Wow, this is, I'm so impressed with your program. And I know you've been one of the schools that have had a program for a long time. You know, you're involved with the University Sales Center Alliance, and we would love to come to your competition. When is your competition, by the way?
Yeah, so the U Toledo Invitational Sales Competition for 2026 is February 19th through the 21st. So it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday in 26.
And how many universities compete in that competition?
So we have 36 different universities that compete in the competition, and usually we have a couple more beyond the 36 that come to attend because it's way more than just a role play competition. We're also doing interactive workshops and panel discussions, coaching and interviewing sessions, a career fair, and a social media competition. So we're looking at role play performance and also engagement performance. So there's usually a couple of other universities that come just for the engagement side, but also to be a part of the social media competition as well too.
Very good. Before I ask you for your final action step, I'm just kind of curious, what expectations do the graduates have from their sales career? Again, you just mentioned some of these world-class companies that are coming to recruit, and there is a big um, struggle these days, I guess, with the value using your college education to get into your career, right? You want to get started right away in a lot of cases. So you want to go from a program like yours right into a job, start your career, hopefully you'll be successful, it'll be fruitful. Where do these kids, what do they expect their degree to take them? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, do they expect to be the VP of Americas, for international paper? Or, how do you train them for what a career looks like?
Yeah, great question. So some of them, yes, they do expect to have those particular roles at some point in time, right? They are all different. The way we talk to our students is we talk to them about it as if it's a career lattice.
Mm,
Because we want them to understand that yes, you might start in an entry-level sales role, but you have so many wonderful options as your career evolves over time. Some of them, because there's higher level sales roles, right? There's strategic selling roles,
yep.
there's industry or product specific or solution specific type product roles. You can get into key accounts. Some people will eventually go into marketing, training, leadership, pricing and promotion strategies. And so that's the conversation we have with them is we don't want them to think that they're locked in at like, well, the next step is I have to go into leadership. No. You don't, there's lots of different options for what you can do. And what's really great about starting in professional sales is you understand the customer.
Mm,
Not only do you understand, which is the whole reason the company exists, by the way, is to serve that customer,
yes.
right? So understanding the customer, but then also that customer journey, right? How do
Mm.
all of the other functional areas factor into that customer's journey and customer success? And as a sales professional, especially one if you're doing your job right, you are understanding what's going on in R&D and production and finance and shipping and receiving and all of those other aspects to understand what parts of our company are functioning really well. What are some areas where we might need to do a little bit or a lot of cleanup type work? And so typically they're really well versed in the overall operations of an organization.
Well, first off, congratulations again on the program that you run. It's so amazing, and it's so amazing at how um, well and compensated it is, that you have the entire spectrum of the various classes and the only university to do the purchasing class, and that it's also part of the MBA curriculum and the reputation that University of Toledo. When we started announcing the office hours Sales Professors Unplugged, a couple people reached out and said, have you interviewed the team from University of Toledo yet? So, this is great. I'm excited to publish this. Congratulations again on your success and for your journey as well. And, for the impact that you're having on two people, on the companies that are hiring talent, because there's always a war for talent, right? If there's if there's the economy is going down or whatever it might be, or the economy is great, there's always a war for great sales talent. Secondly, for what you're doing for these kids, we're the Institute for Effective Professional Selling. We believe that selling is a profession. We work with great organizations, great selling professionals. It's not just a great career choice, but it's a great lifestyle, helping customer services. I mean, sales is always about service. It's about bringing value. The most commonly uttered word on the Sales Game Changers podcast is value, right? And how are you making a difference with your customer who is struggling to make a difference with their customer? And since the pandemic, there's even a bigger struggle to make a difference with your customer's customer. The whole
Mhm.
supply chain has been affected, and what you're doing to prepare these kids to help these companies achieve their noble goals is significant. Again, Deirdre Jones, thank you so much. We'd like to end the show with a final action step. You've given us a lot of great ideas. Is there something specific you'd like people to do after listening to today's show or reading the transcript?
I would love for folks to continue to promote the career of
Mm,
professional selling, right? Because, it is a profession that is always going to be there, is always going to be needed. And as you said, it's very honorable and valuable to the business community, just frankly how the world functions. And so, go judge a DECA or FFA or BPA competition at a high school, go to a career day and talk about sales careers and encourage those students to become aware of those careers in that K-12 space, encouraging them to be aware of those types of career options in your own communities and to be proud about what you do so we can continue to see those students come to the University of Toledo and all the other university sales programs across the country so we can continue to produce those individuals for the business community.
I just got one quick follow-up to that. How many kids come to the University of Toledo to get into your program? I guess I should say maybe like what percentage of kids that are in your program presently or over time matriculated to University of Toledo to be in your program versus how many kids maybe came without knowing what they were going to major in and they took one of your classes or they met a kid on their in their dorm who would you say 20%, 50, 80%? Just curious.
It's I don't have a specific number. I can tell you is the number of students that come here from the get-go and they're like, Schmidt School of Professional Sales, lock in, let's go. It's actually a relatively lower number
Hmm.
because a lot of times they're not even thinking, usually high school students, they're just thinking
Mm,
business,
okay.
right? They're usually just thinking business. And if they are thinking beyond business, it's like accounting, finance, or marketing sales, right? Like they're thinking like
Mm,
hard skills, soft skills. And so it's usually not until they actually get into the university and they start taking different classes and interacting with other students and businesses where they start to realize that there are these other areas like sales and supply chain and stuff. And so, yeah, I think most of them, they don't necessarily come here specifically for the sales program from the get-go. Would love to see that change, over time. But a lot of that comes down to, what people are familiar with in their own backgrounds and growing up, which is why we would love to have the community, reaching out to their K-12 space to create that level of awareness and interest so they can come to programs like University of Toledo. So
all right. Well, thank you once again, Deirdre Jones. My name is Fred Diamond. This is the Sales Game Changers podcast, Office Hours, Sales Professors Unplugged.